I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, 2 soldiers are attacked in a West Bank car ramming. Israeli leaders dig deeper into the Syrian chemical weapons attack, and one Israeli company shows us how to get clean drinking water straight out of thin air. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. One Israeli soldier was killed today and another was lightly wounded in what is currently being investigated as yet another deadly car ramming attack. Both victims are Israeli men in their 20s who were standing near a bus stop when a silver Audi crashed onto the sidewalk and slammed into them. One of the men, Sergeant El-Khay Tahar Lev, died at the scene.
We got a call about a terror attack in the section of Afra. We got to the scene. After 2 minutes, we started to treat the injuries, and unfortunately, we had to pronounce the person one is dead, and the other one was taken to the hospital to treatment.
The incident occurred at a junction near the Ofra settlement, which is just northeast of Ramallah in the central West Bank. The Israeli army has apprehended the Palestinian driver of the car. Arab media sources are identifying the suspect as 21-year-old Malek Ahmad Musa Hamed from a nearby town. The Hamas terror group immediately boasted that anyone who thought the recent spate of Arab violence against Jews has been waning was wrong. This past Saturday, another West Bank Palestinian was killed during a stabbing attack that wounded 3 Israelis in Jerusalem. Israeli security forces are on heightened alert to counter a possible spike in terrorism over the upcoming Jewish celebration of the Passover holiday, which begins next Monday. Israeli defense officials are holding Syrian President Bashar Assad accountable for the horrific chemical attack against his own people yesterday, based on military intelligence. A source speaking on the condition of anonymity told the Associated Press that based on its own assessments, Israel has good reason to believe that Damascus has literally tons of toxic weapons at its disposal. The attack in Idlib is the worst incident of this kind in 4 years and has killed at least 72 civilians. Preliminary evidence indicates that sarin nerve gas was dropped in the rebel-held northwestern province by Syrian military aircraft. The United States is hinting that it may respond to the attack, which was condemned in an emergency session at the United Nations. Israel's UN ambassador Dani Danon is calling the use of chemical weapons and the appalling murder of innocent children evil. He's calling on the Security Council to use all of its authority to put an end to the situation in Syria. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin says the Jewish state cannot remain indifferent to the gassing of Syrian civilians, comparing it to the Holocaust. The Jewish people know all too well how dangerous silence can be, and the president says that as a people who survived the greatest of atrocities and rose from the ashes to be a strong and secure nation, Israel will do all that it can to continue to aid the survivors of the horrors in Syria. Joining me in the studio today is a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, Knesset member Dr. Anat Belko. She's here to discuss the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Syria and how best Israel can respond. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Natasha, for having me.
All right, so let's begin. In the past 2 days, we've seen the horrific results of Bashar Assad's supposed chemical attacks against his own people. Now, how should Israel be responding to this, in your opinion?
Natasha, it's not the first time that he used chemical weapon and throw it on the heads of his own people, his compatriot. And actually, this weapon he earned to throw on the Israelis' children. We need to understand all the weapons that we see right now in Israel, he stored against Israel. And when in 2013, the world was silenced, and they faked the destruction of the chemical weapon. Perhaps there was this destruction of chemical weapon according to former President Obama. But we know that they still have one, and we saw all those barrels with chlor that they were throwing from aircraft on the heads of their own people. And now we see those horrible atrocities, those horrible pictures.
Right, and we're seeing, a major issue here with Syrian refugees. Now, do you believe that Israel should be taking in more refugees?
I think that we need to be very careful. We need to ask to the international community to come and to do something. The UN that was sleeping on wheel when we are speaking about all is going on in Syria and they just promote declaration against Israel should act right now. This is the challenge for the UN to do something because they don't do anything
but
to
what
stop
about Israel? You know,
Israel took the wounded people, and you had visited the hospital, Ziv hospital in the north. We are the only country who take on our account to give the wounded people medical aid, humanitarian aid. We help people, we took them, we did surgeries and brought them back. They come to check after a month, and we did that. But this is not about what Israel can do, because we will give the humanitarian aid as we can. But the international countries, the superpowers, we have Russia, we have America, and we have the Sunni Daesh, and we have Iran and Hezbollah, Shia version of Daesh.
I mean,
that involve. It's like they need to stop this war. You have 12 million refugees. You have 750,000 people who were casualties. So it's about time the international arena will start to work.
Now, I mean, but when we talk about Israel specifically, you know, some believe that, and many Israelis themselves believe that we have a moral obligation as the Jewish people that have gone through a Holocaust to be helping these people on a more profound level. We are helping with, obviously, aid to wounded Syrian refugees on the border. But, you know, there was a plan to take in close to 100 Syrian orphans, and we haven't heard anything about that happening. Is that plan still in the works?
I don't know. I didn't go to these details, but it wouldn't solve any problem. It wouldn't solve any problem. The problem are millions of people that somebody need to stop this war. To have like security zones, no-fly zones for the civilian there.
Could we build a safe zone on the border of Israel and Syria?
I think that the superpowers, Russia and America and the UN, it's about time that the UN do his job. We're speaking the humanitarian, the Human Rights Committee, speaking about Israel on a daily basis, but silence about Syria. We need to have the secure zones for the civilians, free for flying there, and I think this will be the best solution for the Syrian people. And I think that we'll do whatever we can to help them.
Dr.
As the Prime Minister
and
said.
Dr. Anat Bilko, thank you so much for coming in. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Thank you, Natasha, for having me.
Great.
Thank you.
Turning back to the same issue, Israel has a front seat view of the tragedies unfolding in Syria, which lies only a few miles over the northern frontier. And even though the two nations have fought 3 wars over 7 decades of hostilities, the Israeli people are doing everything in their power to help alleviate the suffering among their northern neighbors. Since 2013, the Jewish state has given medical care to more than 5,000 injured Syrians who make their way to Israeli army field hospitals. Israeli nonprofits are setting up schools for refugee children in Greece, and Jerusalem's even working on a program to take in orphans. Now, following the toxic chemical attack, the Israeli group called Just Beyond Our Border is calling on Jerusalem to help create a safe zone in parts of the war-torn Arab Republic. The grassroots organization's already raised more than $500,000 for children seeking refuge in southern Syria. Over 8,000 Israelis have donated money to the group's crowdfunding campaign since it was launched this past October. The money's been used to purchase clothing, food, and medicine delivered with aid from Israeli aircraft. One of the organization's leaders says he now wants the Israeli government to lend political support for the establishment of a safe zone where greater numbers of people can be sheltered from the civil war. At least 500,000 Syrians have reportedly been killed since a conflict erupted in 2011. The Just Beyond Our Border group may hold another protest in front of the Russian embassy in Tel Aviv against Moscow's support of the Damascus military regime. Last December, hundreds of Israelis formed a human chain outside of the compound, calling for an end to the bloodshed. And last but not least, the groups also organized 14 different gatherings nationwide where Israelis offer their communal prayers for the people of Syria. The Hamas terror organization has announced that their search for the killers of their operative Mazen Fakawa has apparently come to an end. ILTV's Aaron Porras reports. Aaron, who is responsible?
Well, Hamas didn't name anybody, but the Hamas Interior Ministry spokesman said that several collaborators were arrested after investigators determined that they had a direct role in the assassination. That being said, although Hamas claims to have both captured the assassins and earlier today executed them, they didn't end the investigation.
All right, well, let's check out your report.
Hamas has charged since the March 24th assassination that Israeli forces were behind his murder, and they still do. While the alleged guilty parties are said to be collaborators with Israel, Hamas has stated that it doesn't necessarily want to renew a conflict. And though Fakawa may indeed have been an Israeli target for assassination, as he orchestrated several suicide bombings during the Second Intifada, Israel denies any involvement. Rather, Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman accuses Hamas of having internally assassinated one of their own members, as they've allegedly done before, and then blaming Israel to save face. Dozens have been arrested in suspected collaboration, and the border to Israel remains closed from the Gaza side. According to Palestinian media sources, Fakawa was in his car when someone fired upon him. He died at the wheel.
All right, now imagine that one day goods could be shipped straight from Tel Aviv to Jordan or even Saudi Arabia. Well, that's the vision Israel has for a new railway network that would boost national economies in the region. The plans being unveiled by Israeli Transportation Minister Israel Katz.
אני כבר יצאתי לביצוע מיידי. קיבלתי אור ירוק מראש הממשלה, אנחנו בקשר עם גורמים בכירים מאוד בממשל האמריקאי. אני את החלק הישראלי כבר מקדם, ואנחנו פועלים. הרעיון הוא להכניס את הכל למסגרת של ביצוע מעשי. מדינות, חברות, מאחר ואני מומחה בדברים האלה, זה יכול להיות הליך מהיר מאוד לבנות את המודל, וכל אחד יעשה באזור שלו את החלק שלו. החיבור שנדרש הוא מאוד קטן. המערכת באופן כללי כבר קיימת.
The proposed rail network would run all the way from a Saudi Arabian port in the Gulf through Jordan to the Mediterranean in northern Israel. The plan would significantly cut the distance needed to move goods. Jerusalem says Washington's already expressed enthusiasm for the Middle Eastern rail bridge, although it's not yet known if the Arab states are also backing the Israeli initiative.
העסקה היא לטובתם. העסקה היא לטובתם. יש לי יסוד עמוק להאמין שהם רוצים את זה. ובעצם אנחנו נותנים להם את מה שהיה כאן בזמן הטורקים, נותנים חיבור, אבל בתנאים הרבה יותר מודרניים, חיבור לים התיכון.
The Israeli minister also points out that only a small stretch of track is needed to connect the current Israeli network with the West Bank. This would greatly benefit the Palestinians by offering them a route to export their products to the Arab world.
זו המהפכה הכי גדולה שהחברה הפלסטינית יכולה לעבור מאז ומעולם. להפוך אותם לטריטוריה מודרנית.
Katz has held the transportation portfolio under the leadership of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu since 2009. He's also proposed the building of an island off the coast of the Gaza Strip that would house both air and seaports to serve the Palestinians. All right, and yet another sign of the deep military cooperation with the United States, Israel has just hosted a high-level training drill for elite commandos from both nations. The objective of the joint exercise is to further the development of operational capabilities between the two countries' special forces. The Israeli Shayetet 13 Navy commandos conducted the drill with their counterparts in the U.S. Navy SEALs. Israel's Sa'al 5 missile ship also participated. The field collaboration training was geared at preparation for a full variety of potential scenarios, ranging from the boarding and overtaking of ships to parachuting at sea. The head of Israel's naval operations says the annual exercise is essential for exchanging knowledge and forging professional relations. The Pew Research Center has just completed a new study on what the populations of the world's religious groups are expected to look like in the future, and there are several facts you might find surprising. Right now, the Jewish community amounts to just 0.2% of all people on Earth. And that number is likely to fall a bit to just 0.17% by 2060. Now, here's the interesting news. Today, 42% of all Jews live in Israel, and about 40% live in the U.S. But in 43 years, 53% are likely to be living in the Holy Land, and only about 32% will remain in North America. In 2015, there were 14 18.3 million total Jews on the planet. That number is expected to rise about 15%, or by 6.4 million. And since the research center based its predictions on self-identifications, the actual numbers could be even higher, since some Jews think of themselves as agnostic or atheists. When it comes to birth rates, Jewish women currently have 2.3 children on average. Muslims have the highest fertility levels with 2.9 children per woman, and Christians have 2.6. By 2060, there is likely to be 9.6 billion of U.S. humans walking around, which is a third more than today. Christians are expected to hold a slight 32% majority of about 3.1 billion people, with Muslims coming in only a little behind at 3 billion. That was a lot of statistics. All right, Israel has long been a world leader in the medical benefits of cannabis, and now the Hebrew University of Jerusalem is becoming a pioneer among academic institutions by launching the first ever marijuana research center.
The multidisciplinary center is already attracting many of the nation's most prominent scientists, and the 86-year-old Israeli chemistry professor, considered to be the father of cannabis research, is even part of the team. Rafael Machulam is credited with discovering the main psychoactive component in the substance way back in 1964. The Hebrew U team will be working with the Hadassah Medical Center to explore further ways cannabis can benefit the fields of nanotechnology, pain, and brain science. It will also investigate therapeutic aspects for addiction, bone formation, obesity, and other issues. And even before it's opened its doors, the center's already funded several projects. They include the use of cannabinoid chemical compounds to help heal traumatic brain injuries, in addition to their potential in fighting cancer. The new Israeli center is now in hot demand among biotech companies and scientists to sign a collaborative memoranda of understandings around the world.
And now, just so you guys know, the Israeli government is actually very, very supportive of cannabis research. $2 million were allocated in January to back studies on the growth of medical marijuana. All right, turning now to another interview. The basic piston engine that powers your car is about to get a major overhaul for the first time in 150 years. Joining me in the studio today is Maya Gonik, the head of business development at Aquarius Engines, who's here to tell us about how her startup has just developed a single piston engine that's so powerful and cost effective, it's already being evaluated by high-end European car manufacturers. Thank you so much for coming in, Maya.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's begin. Tell us about the piston engine. Why have there been no major changes?
Okay, I think that the major reason was that there were several companies that tried to reinvent the piston engine, but lack of technologies that are available today in the market actually enabled us to reinvent this engine.
Interesting. So how did you come up with the idea to reinvent the engine in the first place? Why change things up?
Okay, so Shaul Yacobi, the inventor, he actually thinks differently. He thinks out of the box. Some people say he thinks he has no box. So he thought, why to turn things in order to create energy? Why just not create a new engine that will move from side to side and create energy in a much efficient way?
So explain, what are some of the benefits of this new engine and how does it work exactly?
It works, actually, it has only one piston that moves from side to side and creates energy on both ways, on both sides,
we can see
yes.
this image behind us to kind of get the visual.
Exactly. And in a regular engine, there are a lot of systems that we do not have in this engine, that we kind of cut them out. And our engine actually has a few parts, and it's third the size of a regular engine, and it's also weight, about third of a regular engine.
So what makes this engine different from the engine that exists in the past? What saves energy about it? How does it work?
Okay, first of all, our engine consists only from one moving part, and it has 20 main parts. And current engines in the market, they usually have dozens of moving parts and more than 150 parts overall. In our engine, basically, it moves from side to side and creates energy on both sides. In current engines, a movement from side to side creates only one positive action. And in our engine, a movement from side to side creates two positive actions, which makes our engine efficient
Twice as much.
twice as much as what we have in the market today. Yeah.
Interesting. So what does that mean when when you're comparing it to the traditional engine? How much energy is it saving? What are the numbers that we're looking at?
Let's say if you're in your car, you would be able to drive twice the distance that you're driving today, let's say.
Wow, it's amazing. Now, is this
on the
engine
same tank?
on the same tank,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is huge? I mean, because that's so positive for the environment as well, right? 'Cause
Exactly,
it means that we're
yes.
using less gas. And
Yes.
what is the cost of an engine like this? I mean, is it more expensive to implement in a car? Is that something that may challenge you guys in kind of selling the engine to different car manufacturers?
Actually, we have less parts, so it's going to be significantly cheaper than existing engines. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, it seems like you guys have created something that is really going to change the automotive world. And I'm excited to learn more about this. And I hope that one day I'll be driving a car that has one of these engines inside, because it certainly seems to be helping the environment. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Speaking of another issue that we need to tackle, water is one of the most precious resources on Earth, but unfortunately we're severely lacking it. But imagine if you could just turn the air that you breathe into a tasty drink. That may sound outlandish, and it's going to be hard to believe this, but it's true. One Israeli high-tech company has almost miraculously come up with a way to extract drinking water from thin air.
WaterGen technology created a device capable of producing 15 to 20 liters of drinkable water each day. ILTV viewers know Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz from our Ask Alan show. Professor Dershowitz actually unveiled the amazing technology on stage in front of thousands of delegates at the recent APAC conference in Washington. He described the innovation as one of the greatest weapons against worldwide water shortages. He's also saying that the most effective way to end boycotts against the Jewish state is the development of technologies that the world can't live without. About 1/5 of the world's population, that's 1.2 billion people, are estimated to live in drought-ridden areas. About 75 million people in India lack access to clean water, and New Delhi's already signed a deal with the Israelis to produce its purified water in rural villages. And Vietnam's made an agreement for the firm to generate tens of thousands of liters of water every day for the people of Hanoi. The Israeli tech can be used anywhere that there's a shortage or even contamination caused by natural disasters, like after the hurricanes in Haiti and New Orleans.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by the University of Haifa, Hebrew Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today marks Israel's first officially recognized Yom Aliyah, or Aliyah Day, since the Knesset approved of the new holiday in June of 2016. Aliyah Day is a national celebration in honor of the contributions that Israeli immigrants, or olim, make in the Holy Land. So today's word is lichvod, meaning to honor or in honor of. There's plenty of good reason to honor or lichvod Israel's immigrants too. Just as in any other diverse and democratic country, Israel's olim serve in the Knesset, become doctors, high-tech entrepreneurs, and even cabinet ministers like Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman. In fact, since we're naming names, practically everyone from the ILTV news department is an ole as well, including myself. So, lichvod kol ha'olim, or in honor of all of the immigrants here in Israel, and especially on behalf of ILTV, happy Aliyah Day. To all of you still planning or thinking about moving here, we can't wait to meet you. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight is expected to be warm with a low of 60 or 16 degrees Celsius. This weekend, you can expect some clouds and a significant drop in temperatures with an average high of 70 degrees or 21 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.65 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching and see you next time.